Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, a regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the Nasdaq Market Site, we have Magnus Haglind, Senior Vice President and Head of Capital Markets Technology at Nasdaq, John Kain, Head of Financial Services Market Development at AWS, and Brad Bailey, Research Director at Burton-Taylor International Consulting. Capital markets and banks are navigating compressed regulatory timelines, all ambitions and cost to change pressures, all while protecting resilience and trust. Our panel of experts join me to discuss why modernization can't wait and the practical paths firms are taking to reduce risk and accelerate innovation. It is great to have all of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. Before we dive into the conversation, Magnus, let's kick it off with you. Give us a brief overview of Nasdaq's role within capital markets tech.
So I run a business within Nasdaq that provides software and services to financial market infrastructure, so exchanges, clearinghouses, and CSDs, plus then trade management, collateral management, and treasury management to a lot of banks, brokers, and buy sides. So I have an opportunity to meet with many parts of the financial market ecosystem.
And John, AWS's role?
Yeah, and my team works across our customers globally to help adopt AWS specifically from a financial services perspective, helping meet their business needs and goals. And we help set the strategy for AWS from a partner and services perspective.
Right, and Brad, if you could tell us about the work at Burton-Taylor.
Absolutely, thank you, Jill. Burton-Taylor is a research and consulting firm. We help our clients think about the challenges in the capital markets, specifically around the evolution of technology, how to use data, how to use exchange data, how to deal with the different data providers, and the many changes that are taking place with the cloud and with AI in the data space.
And Magnus, speaking of changes, let's talk about modernization mandates. What's changed this year that's forcing this action?
We're at a time in industry where we see a confluence of change across market structure, regulations, and technology. And this year that amplifies the need for modernization. So I would say when it comes to market structure and regulatory momentum, we have settlement acceleration and the introduction of T+1. We see the move to 24/5 markets, and then of course also the embracement of digital assets, and that is certainly creating a complete new need for looking at technology in a different way. And then we have AI, so and that is an important board priority for all companies. And today, unfortunately, siloed data solutions is a big barrier for adoption of these toolings. And all this is creating, I would say, a tax on status quo, and that is having impact on firms' ability to mobilize for modernization. We have seen industry reports that points to that more than 50% of IT investments actually goes into just keeping status quo of legacy solutions.
Yeah, and Brad, from the analyst perspective, your vantage point, why do you think this is an inflection point?
You know, following on what Magnus is saying, we are at a major inflection point in a couple dimensions. I mean, one, if we look at the world itself, the geopolitical things that are happening, there's so much going on, the speed and velocity of change, and that change encompasses what impacts the market, and then spikes in volatility. We've seen more of those. We've seen tremendous demand to try to be able to react quicker. So how do you do this? If you're a capital markets player, you need to be able to be in the right place with the right operational infrastructure to deal with the rapid change that keeps coming. And I think what I'll find from when I look at my clients is the clients that can get the right data in the right format, at the right time, in the right place, and whether that's to the C-suite, whether that's to the trading desk, whether that's to risk, operations, or whether that's audit or regulatory data that's going to the regulators, it's a real advantage in this market. And to get there, I think you can't just keep putting more duct tape on the old systems. That time has passed. The speed in which data and information is flowing, and the change and the rapidity of whether it's SEC, CFTC, the convergence of digital assets into the traditional markets are driving such amazing change that people are just sitting there, typically gobsmacked if they're not prepared.
Yeah.
And you really have to be in the position to move quickly with the operational agility that comes from a flexible infrastructure and really the ability to use your data and use the data that's available.
So John, what's the practical low-risk path to achieve this?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been over a decade of adoption of AWS technologies within the capital market sector. And so we're quite a distance away from those early days where we're using sort of that flexibility from a compute perspective on some of those lower risk areas, whether it was investment research, risk, or middle office. And increasingly, that need for agility within a business perspective really has driven the move to more critical systems to the cloud, because you need to be able to react to those changes. Most of the digital asset trading infrastructure grew up on cloud because you needed that ability to rapidly scale with a changing customer base and a deployment on a global perspective, right? And those things are only really available from a cloud perspective. We've seen the same thing in the equity space with fractional share trading, increasing move to kind of ETF and index funds, with the move to like higher volumes, lower dollar trades at a different price point. And you have to think about what's the technology that I need to support it. And we've been happy that we've been able to work with partners like Nasdaq to move those type of systems and critical ones like exchanges and clearinghouse to the cloud. So you can pick up that infrastructure benefit of being able to run at scale securely and compliantly while getting the benefits of agility and be able to react to market changes. I think what's more interesting, I think over the last 2 years, is that increasingly the actual financial services infrastructure, that actual software that does pre-trade, post-trade, middle office management, is now also available as a platform. So you're getting not just the technology benefits of cloud, you're getting them integrated in a way that our end customers actually consume. And that ability to not have to worry about where you're not differentiating from a business perspective and focus on differentiating, like Brad mentioned, taking advantage of the data that's unique to you, really accelerates things going forward. And then just to kind of touch on, Brad mentioned and Magnus on the AI side, the AI environment is changing so rapidly right now. There's risk in not responding fast enough, right? It's not, you no longer have the luxury of waiting for the technology to mature before you figure out how to develop. You really need the greatest capabilities today, right now. And you really, as most enterprises, can't build that capability themselves. Having that flexibility to get it now when you need it in the context you need it, I think is key to being able to stay in your business going forward.
Yeah, Magnus, let's take a step back for a moment here. What does modernization actually mean in practice?
Yeah, good question. So I think it's obvious from the conversation we're having here that we're moving from a paradigm, an old paradigm on how we run market, to a setup where everything is always on. And that is fundamentally then changing not just technology, but the business model. So I would say modernization is about business transformation. And you need to look for outcomes beyond technology and look into what should your operating model look like going forward. And that goes across your organization, your skills, your staff, and all that. And that's why this had now moved away from a replacing one-to-one to actually achieving completely new outcomes. That requires also new culture and a culture from more of a project-oriented way of mobilizing change to how do you establish a culture of continuous change.
Yeah. And John, we started talking about the compressed timelines, cost to change, the pressure to innovate. You no longer have the luxury to see if the technology works or not. Once firms have the right foundation in place, standardized practices, observability, predictable upgrades, and so forth, how can AI help solve those challenges and then create new opportunities?
It's been interesting. We've been using AI across the industry for 7 or 8 years from a machine learning perspective, and over the last 2 or 3, particularly from a generative AI perspective. What we've seen is that as firms have gotten more experience with generative AI technologies, they've realized that the right way to actually deploy them is in much more tailored fashions, really breaking down complex workflows from an end-to-end perspective into smaller tasks, generally referred to agents in the industry, but that actually brings a lot of benefit. Those agents can be tailored for a specific function. You can put guardrails around them so you can really understand what they're doing, minimize hallucinations, and ground them with the data in your organization that allows you to be really expert in things. And so now we're seeing entire workflows being broken down into smaller steps and driving tremendous automation benefits. I think particularly in the investment research space, the ability to actually investigate things from both a public and private information perspective, to think about investment strategies, react to the latest news and very unstructured information, and use that not just for the asset classes you're used to covering, but thinking about that on a global scale, because there's very little barrier now between being able to look at things on a global basis, because those workflows really work at scale across the organization. And we're developing them now and deploying them in a way that's not just effective from a business perspective, but secure and compliant and governant from a scale perspective as well.
Right, and Magnus, this goes back to your point about critical data insight.
Correct. So you need to ensure that you have your data management capabilities up to play, and basically bring those data sets together. And it's not just about the data your own systems produce, but also be able to compound data elements from other sources.
Yeah, and just to add on top of that, so much now that benefit is in existing systems that are there today, and understanding sort of the context of how you're using that data within a platform. Knowing that you've got data from a trade or middle office perspective makes it much easier to do collateral management or risk, right? If you've got a platform that collects communication surveillance, the ability to actually look at it within that context, the ability to embed generative AI within existing processes allow you not just to have to build it yourself, but leverage the vendors and the supply chain in the industry to get those benefits just by maintaining those platforms and working with partners that are modernizing at the pace that you want to go as well.
Right, so let's add this with a speed round here, almost SPY versus SPY, where you have a value accelerator and then momentum killer. So I want to get both perspectives on this. Brad, I want to start with you. As it relates to value accelerators, what's the most important accelerator as it relates to modernization?
I mean, making the right decision, going through and seeing what you have, and then having buy-in at the senior level, and really going forward with this. It's hard to sometimes to make the investment, but to have the flexibility, it's a starting point to do the AI, to do the advanced analytics. You really need to think about how to leverage the best of what is out there.
Yeah, Magnus, ask the same of you.
Yeah, I would say capitalize on experience that exists in industry. Don't try to reinvent the wheel yourself. So it's, and I think cloud and the adoption of cloud across financial services and I would say broader industry, it's a lot of experience that have been gained, and ensure you use that.
Yeah.
And I'll focus on what Magnus said earlier, really focus on the business outcome and where you're actually bringing differentiation. And then to echo what Brad said, that's not just a technology effort, right? I think one of the interesting things that generative AI is doing is breaking down the barriers between teams that are developing product and the teams that are implementing technology. And that confluence of sort of the technology and business knowledge have to come together to drive real innovation.
Well, Magnus, that goes back to what you were saying before, that helps to break down the silos, which is critical to executing on this successfully.
Yeah, and especially in a world where always on, which means that the ability to move information across your platform and make quick decisions is going to be very important.
So let's wrap it up with momentum killers. What would you deem as one of the greatest momentum killers?
I think it's the short-term focus maybe on cost and not identifying the right outcomes and basically qualify those. I think that can kill a lot of momentum.
And John, from your perspective?
If you're not thinking a little bit ahead, if you're just trying to modernize your legacy platform, you're probably not going to rethink your business to actually take advantage of how technology is so quickly evolving in the industry.
And Brad?
I would add on what Magnus and John said. It's spending on problems rather than investing in opportunities. I mean, it really comes down to making a decision to have the right future state, given how quickly things are changing.
All right, appreciate everyone's insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me from MarketSite. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.